It started with a creaky door and a crumpled letter, but it ended with a son calling me Dad. The door creaked and my heart stopped. I hadn't meant to intrude, but the silence from Ethan's room had gnawed at me all evening. Something was wrong, terribly, achingly wrong. I stood frozen in the hallway of our small Oregon home, the kind with old wood floors and windows that rattled in the coastal wind. Ethan, my stepson, was 17, sharp edges and quiet storms, the kind of kid who'd rather shut the world out than talk about what hurt. His mom, my wife Laura, was away for the weekend at a work conference, leaving just the two of us to navigate the fragile peace we'd built over the last 3 years. I married Laura when Ethan was 14, a lanky kid with her green eyes and a distrust that cut like glass. He'd never really warmed to me. I was just Tom, the guy who showed up after his dad left, the one who tried too hard, told bad jokes, and made worse dinners. But tonight felt different. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that screams trouble. I knocked softly. No answer. My hand hovered over the doorknob, guilt prickling at my neck. He deserved privacy, but the weight in my gut told me to check. I pushed the door open, just a crack. Ethan sat on the edge of his bed, head bowed, hands gripping a piece of paper. His shoulders trembled. The sight hit me like a punch. "Ethan?" My voice came out as barely a whisper. He flinched, looking up. His eyes were wide, glassy. "Get out," he said, but there was no venom in it, just raw fear. The paper slipped from his hands, fluttering to the floor. I caught a glimpse, hurried handwriting, words like love and sorry flashing before he snatched it back. I didn't mean to. I started, but he cut me off. "You don't get it, Tom. You don't belong here." His voice cracked, and I saw it. The weight he'd been carrying, one no kid should bear alone. I stepped closer, instinct overriding caution. "Talk to me, Ethan. Whatever it is, I'm here." He laughed bitterly, a sound far too old for his young face. "You're not my dad. You're just here." The words stung, but I stayed. Something about that letter, the way his hand shook. It was bigger than our usual distance. I sat down on the chair by his desk, keeping space between us. "I know I'm not your dad," I said quietly, "but I care about you, and I'm not leaving until you tell me what's going on." Ethan's eyes darted to the letter, then back to me. For a moment, I thought he'd bolt, but instead, he sank onto the bed, the fight draining out of him. "You wouldn't understand," he muttered. "Try me." He hesitated, twisting the hem of his hoodie. The air felt thick with everything unsaid. Finally, he spoke, so low I had to strain to hear. I'm gay, Tom, and someone found out." The words hung there, raw and heavy. My heart lurched, not from shock, but from the fear in his eyes. I'd suspected, maybe, in the way he dodged questions about dates, or went quiet when friends talked about crushes. But seeing it, hearing the tremble in his voice, made it real. "Who found out?" I asked gently. He shook his head, tears spilling over. "Doesn't matter. They're gonna tell everyone. My life's over." I wanted to reach out, to pull him into a hug, but I didn't know if he'd let me. Instead, I said softly, "Your life's not over, Ethan. Not even close." He looked at me, searching, waiting to see if I meant it. And I knew then, everything between us was about to change. The next morning, the house felt different, like the air itself was holding its breath. Ethan hadn't said much after his confession, only asked me not to tell Laura yet. I promised, though it sat heavy in my chest. Laura loved Ethan fiercely, but she had her own ideas about family, about what was normal. I didn't know how she'd take this, and that uncertainty scared me. At breakfast, Ethan avoided my eyes, picking at his cereal. I tried to act normal, but every word felt like walking on glass. "You got plans today?" I asked, stirring my coffee. He shrugged. Maybe. I wanted to ask about the letter, about who was threatening him, but I held back. Trust was fragile, and I just earned a sliver of it. If you need me, I said, I'm here. No judgment. He gave a small nod and disappeared back to his room. The silence was unbearable. By afternoon, I knocked again, this time with a plan. Ethan, let's get out of here. Grab some food, maybe hit the arcade. He blinked. Why? Because sitting here alone isn't doing you any good. He hesitated, then grabbed his jacket. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As we drove down the coast, wind whipping through the open windows, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe I could be more than just the man who married his mom. Maybe I could be someone he could trust. But when we got to the diner, everything changed again. In a corner booth sat a kid from Ethan's school, smirking as he typed on his phone. Ethan froze, color draining from his face. That's him, he whispered. That's the one who knows. The diner smelled of coffee and fried onions, but all I could focus on were Ethan's clenched fists under the table. The kid, Jake, sat in a Letterman jacket, a smug grin plastered across his face. He hadn't noticed us yet. Want to leave? I asked quietly. Ethan shook his head, eyes fixed on Jake. He'll just follow me. He's been texting me all week saying he'll tell everyone unless what? I asked, stomach tightening. Ethan swallowed. Unless I do what he wants. He's got my letter. The one I wrote to someone. My mind raced. That letter. The one I'd seen last night. Full of words Ethan never meant for anyone else to read. Who'd you write it to? I asked. Not because I needed to know, but because he needed to trust me with the truth. He looked away. A guy. His name's Lucas. He was my best friend. The waitress came by. I ordered burgers just to keep things normal, though my appetite was gone. Did you tell Lucas how you felt? I asked carefully. Ethan nodded faintly. Yeah, he didn't take it well, and then Jake got the letter. I thought I threw it away. I glanced at Jake, still glued to his phone, unaware of the storm he'd caused. What does he want from you? Ethan's voice broke. Money. And other stuff. He says he'll post it online if I don't. Rage burned in my chest. Blackmail. This kid was trying to destroy him. I wanted to storm over and confront Jake, but one look at Ethan's pale face stopped me. This wasn't my battle. Not yet. Let's eat, I said calmly. Then we'll figure this out. Together. Ethan didn't touch his burger. He just stared out the window at the gray Oregon sky. I could feel him slipping away again, retreating into silence. Tell me about Lucas, I said, forcing my voice steady. He blinked, surprised. Why? Because he matters to you, and I want to understand. For the first time, Ethan's guard dropped, just a little. He's different, not like the other guys at school. He listens, or he used to, until I ruined it. You didn't ruin anything, I said firmly. You were honest. That's braver than most people ever are. He gave a small, bitter laugh, but I saw it then, a flicker of hope. Jake eventually left, never seeing us. I watched Ethan's shoulders lower, but I knew this wasn't over. Back home, he promised to tell me if Jake contacted him again. I spent the evening pacing, trying to think how to protect him without breaking his trust. Laura would be back tomorrow, and I had no idea how to face this. The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. Laura called to say her flight was delayed. I was flipping pancakes when my phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. It was a photo. Ethan's letter. The words, I love you, Lucas clear as day. Below it, tell him to pay up or this goes viral. My blood ran cold. I glanced at Ethan across the table, scrolling on his phone, oblivious. I didn't show him the text. Not yet. He didn't need more fear. But I knew we couldn't ignore this. Jake wasn't just a bully. He was dangerous. Ethan, I said, keeping my voice steady. We need to talk about Jake. He froze, his phone slipping from his hand and clattering onto the table. What did he do now? I hesitated, then decided honesty was the only way forward. I showed him the text. His face crumpled, and for a moment, I thought he might break. But then he straightened, jaw tight. "I'm not paying him," he said firmly. "I'm done hiding." Pride and dread hit me all at once. "Okay," I said quietly. "Then we face this together. But we need a plan." We spent the afternoon strategizing. Ethan wanted to confront Jake, but I convinced him to hold off. We needed proof, something to turn the tables. I suggested checking his phone for old messages, anything that showed Jake's threats. Ethan scrolled through his texts and found them, weeks of messages full of blackmail. "This could work," I said, scanning the screen. "But we need to be smart. If we go to the school or the police, we have to be ready for what comes next." Ethan nodded, though fear crept back into his eyes. What if everyone finds out? What if Mom finds out? I reached out and rested a hand on his shoulder. He didn't pull away. "Your mom loves you, Ethan, and so do I. We'll get through this." That night, as Ethan slept, I sat awake staring at the photo of the letter on my phone. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew one thing for sure. I'd fight for Ethan no matter what. Monday morning broke under a gray drizzle, the kind that seeps into your bones. Ethan was quiet on the drive to school, backpack slung low, eyes on the rain-streaked window. I wanted to say something to ease the tension, but words felt hollow against the storm brewing in his life. Last night, we'd agreed to bring Jake's text to the school counselor. Ethan had been terrified, but determined. "I'm not letting him control me," he'd said. And I believed him. Still, I couldn't shake the image of that letter. Those private words now turned into a weapon. At school, we met Ms. Carter, a soft-spoken woman with kind eyes who'd been Ethan's counselor since freshman year. She listened carefully as Ethan explained, his voice steady but low, recounting Jake's threats and the stolen letter. I handed her the screenshots of the texts, my heart pounding as her expression darkened. "This is serious," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Blackmail is a crime. We'll need to involve the principal and possibly the police." Ethan went pale but nodded. I reached for his hand under the table, and for the first time, he didn't pull away. That small gesture hit me harder than I expected. Ms. Carter promised to handle things discreetly, but word travels fast in a small town. By lunchtime, Ethan texted me, "People are staring." "Someone knows," my stomach dropped. I wanted to drive straight back to the school, but Laura was due home any minute, and I still hadn't figured out how to tell her. When she walked through the door, suitcase in hand, she sensed the tension instantly. "What's going on?" she asked, eyes darting between me and Ethan, who'd just come downstairs. I looked at him, silently asking permission. He gave a small nod. I took a breath. "Laura, we need to talk." "It's about Ethan." Her face tightened, motherly instinct kicking in. "Is he okay?" "He's okay," I said, glancing at him. "But something's happened." "Ethan, you want to tell her?" He hesitated, twisting the hem of his shirt. For a second, I thought he'd shut down, but then he looked up, tears welling in his eyes. "Mom, I'm gay, and someone at school is trying to use it against me." Laura's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth. Silence hung in the air. Then she crossed the room and pulled him into a fierce hug. "Oh, honey," she whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was scared," he murmured into her shoulder. She pulled back, cupping his face. "You never have to be scared with me. I love you, no matter what." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Laura's reaction wasn't a surprise, but seeing it unfold lifted a weight I hadn't known I was carrying. Still, Jake's shadow lingered. That evening, Miss Carter called. Jake had been suspended pending investigation, but the letter had already spread online. Ethan's phone buzzed nonstop with messages until he finally turned it off, his face pale and distant. "I knew this would happen," he said quietly. "Everyone's going to hate me now." "Not everyone," I said, sitting beside him. "You've got us. And you've got Lucas, right?"
Have you talked to him?
He shook his head. "He hasn't texted me since... You know?" Laura sat on his other side, hand resting gently on his knee. "Give him time, Ethan. This is a lot for anyone to process." But time wasn't on our side. The next day, Ethan came home early, eyes red. "Lucas won't talk to me," he said hollowly.
He's acting like I don't exist. My heart ached for him.
I remembered being 17, the sting of rejection cutting deeper than anything else. "Give him a chance to come around," I said softly. "But you don't need his approval to be who you are." Ethan didn't reply, just slipped back to his room. Laura and I exchanged a helpless look. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed up searching for local support groups, anything to show him he wasn't alone. By midweek, the school had escalated Jake's case to the police. Ethan gave a full statement, and I went with him, watching as he spoke every painful detail with a bravery I didn't know he had. The officer was kind, promising to press charges for harassment. But the damage was done. The letter was out there, and Ethan's world was unraveling. On Thursday, I found him in the backyard, staring at the ocean in the distance. "I don't know how to keep going," he admitted. "Everyone's talking about me." I sat beside him on the damp grass. "You're stronger than you think, Ethan. You're facing this head on. That's more than most people could ever do." He looked at me, searching. "Why do you care so much, Tom?" "I've been awful to you," I smiled even though it hurt. "Because you're family, and family doesn't give up on each other." For the first time, he smiled back, a small, fragile smile, but it was enough. We sat there, the waves crashing beyond the cliffs, and I felt the shift between us. Not just stepfather and stepson, but something deeper, something real. The weeks that followed blurred together, a mix of tension and tiny victories. Ethan went back to school, head high despite the whispers. Laura and I checked in often, trying to balance support with giving him space. Still, Jake's actions cast a long shadow, and Lucas's silence hurt the most. One evening, I found Ethan at the kitchen table, sketching in a notebook. His drawings were sharp, jagged faces, haunted, emotional. Maybe Lucas, maybe himself. "Those are good," I said, leaning over. He shrugged but didn't close the book. Just something to do. Progress, I thought. I sat across from him. "Have you thought about talking to Lucas again?" "Maybe he's just scared." Ethan's pencil stopped. "He's not scared. He's ashamed of me." The words cut deep. I wanted to argue, but didn't. Instead, I said quietly, "You're not someone to be ashamed of, Ethan. Anyone who thinks that doesn't deserve you." He didn't reply, but he didn't leave either. The quiet between us felt softer than it ever had. The next day, I drove Ethan to a local LGBTQ+ youth group I'd found online. He resisted at first, muttering that he didn't need therapy, but curiosity won out. The meeting was in a small community center, mismatched chairs, warm lighting, a table full of snacks. The facilitator, a kind woman named Sarah, welcomed Ethan like he belonged there. I waited in the car, giving him space. When he came out 2 hours later, his eyes were brighter than they'd been in weeks. "It was okay," he said, climbing in. "There's this guy, Alex, he's been through the same stuff. Says it gets better." I smiled, relief washing over me. "Told you. You're not alone." He rolled his eyes, but there was a spark there. A hint of the kid he'd been before all this. Over the next few weeks, that group became his lifeline. He started talking more, to me, to Laura, to Alex. They traded jokes, stories, hope. But school was still hard. Jake's suspension ended, and though he'd been warned, his friends kept the rumors alive. Ethan came home one afternoon with a split lip, claiming he'd tripped. I didn't believe him, but he begged me not to push. Laura was furious, ready to storm the school, but Ethan stopped her. "It'll only make things worse," he said. That night, I overheard him on the phone with Alex, voice low but steady. "I just want to be me, without all this noise." I stood outside his door, heart swelling with pride. He was fighting in his own way. Then came the letter, from Lucas. It arrived on a Saturday, tucked into the mailbox with no return address. Ethan found it first. His hand shook as he opened it. I watched from the kitchen, giving him space, but ready if he needed me. His face fell as he read, then he handed me the paper. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to handle this. I don't hate you, but I can't be what you want. I need time. Lucas." I wanted to curse Lucas, to shake him for breaking Ethan's heart. But when I looked at Ethan, I saw something else, a flicker of relief. "At least he wrote back," he said softly. "Yeah," I said, handing the letter back. That's something. The next week, Ethan decided to take a stand. He'd heard about an upcoming assembly on bullying, and he wanted to speak. Laura and I were nervous, but he was resolute. "I'm tired of hiding," he said. "If they're going to talk about me, they'll hear it from me first." The gym was packed, buzzing with restless energy. Ethan stood at the podium, gripping the edges with trembling hands, and began to tell his story, not just about Jake, but about himself, about fear, about truth, about finding the strength to be who he was. And as his voice echoed through that room, I realized this wasn't just Ethan's fight anymore. It was his beginning. The room was silent. I saw tears glimmering in Laura's eyes as she squeezed my hand. When Ethan finished, there was a long, aching stillness, then applause. Tentative at first, then growing, rippling through the room until it filled every corner. Not everyone clapped, but enough did. From the back, Alex grinned proudly. Even Ms. Carter's expression softened into something close to admiration. When it ended, Ethan was surrounded, some kids offering quiet words of support, others just curious. I stood at the edge of it all, my chest tight with something I hadn't felt in years, a father's pride. But on the drive home, the glow faded. "Lucas was there," Ethan said quietly. He didn't say anything, just left. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. Sometimes that's all a parent can do. Spring came to the Oregon coast, soft and green. The air grew warmer, the world gentler. And Ethan changed too. The youth group became his safe place, Alex a friend he could trust. But Lucas's silence lingered, an unhealed bruise under the surface. One afternoon, I found Ethan in the garage, hunched over an old skateboard. "Trying to fix it," he said, not looking up. "Alex said he'd teach me some tricks." I grabbed a wrench, crouching beside him. "You and Alex seem pretty close." He shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "He's cool. Doesn't make me feel like I'm wrong." "You're not wrong," I said, handing him a bolt. "You're just Ethan, and that's enough." He met my eyes for a moment, then nodded. A small moment, but it felt like a bridge crossed. School started to feel normal again. Jake had transferred after the police got involved, and the whispers about Ethan faded into the background noise of high school life. Ethan wasn't hiding anymore. He was stronger now. He even pinned a small rainbow flag to his backpack, a quiet act of courage that made Laura cry when she saw it. Later that spring, we sat Ethan down to talk about college. He'd been accepted to a few places, including one in Portland with a strong art program. "I want to study graphic design," he said shyly. "Maybe make comics or something." Laura's smile lit up the room. "That's amazing, sweetheart. You've always been so creative. You've got a gift," I added. "Go for it," he grinned. A real one this time. And for a moment, the heaviness we'd carried began to lift. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and the color drained from his face. "It's Lucas, he wants to talk." Ethan stared at the screen, thumb hovering. "What do I even say?" "Whatever feels right," I told him. "You don't owe him anything, but if you want closure, this might be your chance." He met Lucas at the pier the next day. A public place, safe and open. I waited nearby, pretending to read, but watching from a distance. They talked for a long time. I couldn't hear their words, but I saw Ethan's posture soften, his shoulders relax. When he finally came back, he looked tired but peaceful. "He apologized," he said quietly. "Said he freaked out because he wasn't sure about himself. He's not like me, but he doesn't hate me." I started the car. "That's something." Ethan nodded, looking out at the water. "Yeah, I think I'm okay." In the weeks that followed, Ethan threw himself into art. He and Alex started a comic together about queer teens surviving high school. It was raw, funny, honest. When Ethan showed me the first pages, I couldn't stop smiling. "You're going to blow people away," I said, flipping through the panels. He laughed. "You're such a dad sometimes." The word hit me like sunlight. Dad. I didn't correct him. Just ruffled his hair, pretending not to notice the warmth in my chest. Life steadied. 1 week before graduation, a letter arrived. The school wanted to honor Ethan for his courage in standing up to bullying. "I don't want to be the gay kid forever," he told me, pacing. "I just want to be me." "Then be you," I said. "Take it or don't, but make the choice for yourself." He accepted, and when he walked across that stage, cap slightly crooked, voice steady, I barely breathed. "I'm not here because I'm a hero," he said, gripping the podium. "I'm here because I learned to stand up. And I didn't do it alone." He looked at us then, and in that moment, I saw my pride reflected right back in his eyes. Graduation was a blur of hugs, photos, and tears. Ethan's speech went viral locally, tagged with courage and proud moment. For once, the attention didn't weigh him down, it lifted him. That summer, he and Alex turned our garage into a comic studio, music blaring, sketchbooks everywhere. When I peeked in one day, Ethan was drawing two boys sitting on a pier under a starry sky. "Is that you and Lucas?" I teased. He blushed. "It's inspired," Alex nudged him. "He's got fans already. Posted a teaser online, people are freaking out." I raised an eyebrow. "You're going viral, kid." He rolled his eyes, but I could see the pride behind it. Later, as Laura and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, she said softly, "He's going to be okay." "Yeah," I said, voice tight. "He's tougher than I ever was." But healing isn't a straight line. In July, Lucas reached out again. This time, Ethan met him alone. When he came home, he was thoughtful, calm. "He's figuring himself out," he said. "He's sorry. We're not friends again, not yet, but maybe someday. You okay with that?" I asked. He nodded. "I don't need him to love me back. I just needed to know he doesn't hate me." I squeezed his shoulder. "You're one of a kind, kid," he smirked. "You're not so bad either, Tom." By August, Ethan had chosen Portland. Far enough to grow, close enough to come home. Laura cried through the packing, pretending not to. Ethan pretended to be annoyed, but I caught him hugging her when she wasn't looking. At the dorm, he stood by the car, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Thanks, Tom, for everything." I pulled him in. "You don't owe me a thing. Just keep being you." He hugged back, tight, real. And when we drove away, Laura's tears felt lighter than before. Weeks later, he called. "Tom, you're not going to believe this. A publisher wants our comic." "Like, for real." I laughed, heart full. "Told you you'd blow them away," he chuckled. "Guess I had a good cheerleader." By winter, Ethan was thriving. He came home taller, surer, his rainbow pin now permanent. We decorated the tree, laughed over burnt cookies, and he showed us the first printed copy of his comic. The dedication read, "To Tom and Mom, for being my home." Laura sobbed. I wasn't far behind. Ethan just grinned. "You guys are so dramatic." As fireworks lit the sky that night, I watched him laughing with Alex and felt something settle deep in my chest. We'd made it, through fear, through silence, into something real. Months later, at a campus art show, Ethan's work hung framed on white walls, his story shining in full color. "You did this," I said. He smiled. "We did." Over coffee, he told me about someone new, a boy named Sam. "It's not serious," he said, stirring his drink. "But it's nice. He gets me." "Just take it slow," I said, smiling. He rolled his eyes. "You sound like Mom." He wasn't that scared kid anymore. He was strong, certain, free. When Lucas reached out one last time that spring, Ethan's voice over the phone was steady. "He's changed. Said he's sorry. Wants to be friends again." "And you?" I asked. "I told him I'd think about it," he said. "I don't need him like I used to, but maybe there's room for him now." I smiled, my heart full. "You're calling the shots now, kid." Spring turned to summer, and Ethan came home for a few weeks. His days were filled with sketching, hanging out with Alex, and teaching me how to grill without burning everything. One evening, as we sat on the porch, he turned to me, his voice softer than the breeze. "Tom, I never really thanked you for that night. For not giving up on me." My throat tightened. "You don't need to thank me, Ethan. You're family." He nodded, eyes shining. "Yeah, you are too." That summer, Ethan's comic hit local bookstores. Laura and I bought 10 copies, maybe more than we needed, but we couldn't help ourselves. At the launch party, Ethan gave a short speech, thanking his friends, his mom, and me. When he called me his dad in front of everyone, I had to step outside just to breathe. On the way home, Laura reached for my hand. "You're his hero, you know." I smiled, shaking my head. "He's his own hero. I just got to watch." Ethan's second year of college passed in a blur. Late-night study sessions, new friends, and his comic gaining a quiet, loyal following. Laura and I visited when we could, each trip a reminder of how far he'd come. His dorm was a beautiful mess, sketches taped to every wall, coffee cups scattered around, and a pride flag draped proudly above his desk. One October weekend, he invited us to a campus showcase, a celebration of queer art. The room buzzed with energy, laughter, and color. Ethan's booth stood out raw and full of heart. He spoke to fans easily now, his confidence radiant. Laura squeezed my arm, whispering, "Look at him, Tom, he's shining." I nodded, too full to speak. Ethan waved us over and introduced us to Sam, his boyfriend. Sam was quiet, kind-eyed, with a quick laugh, and I saw it the way Ethan glowed around him. They were good together, real. Later, over dinner, Ethan told us about his next project. He and Alex were pitching a new comic, this one about found family. "It's inspired by you guys," he said softly. "You taught me what that means." Laura took his hand, tears slipping down her cheeks. "We're so proud of you, honey." Ethan grinned, but his voice trembled. "I wouldn't be here without you. Either of you." Back home, life found its rhythm again. Ethan called often. Updates about classes, about Sam, and even about Lucas, who had started texting him again. They were rebuilding a friendship, slowly, carefully, on Ethan's terms. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. One evening, Laura and I were sorting through old photos when we found one from his graduation. Ethan laughing, cap crooked, our arms around him. Laura smiled. "He called you Dad that day." I swallowed hard. "Yeah, best thing I've ever been called." Winter brought a milestone. Ethan's comic got picked up by a major publisher. He flew home for the announcement, with Sam and Alex in tow. The house came alive again, laughter spilling through every room. We celebrated with Laura's lasagna, too many desserts, and a toast. "To family," Ethan said, raising his glass. "The one you're born with and the one you choose." We clinked glasses, and in that moment I felt the weight of everything, the fear, the heartbreak, the love that rebuilt us. Ethan wasn't just my stepson anymore. He was my son in every way that mattered. The next morning, Ethan and I walked along the coast. Waves crashed under a gray sky as he talked about grad school, about maybe traveling with Sam. Then he paused, staring out at the horizon. "You know, that night you walked into my room, I thought I was done for," he said quietly. "But you didn't let me fall apart. You gave me a chance to be me." I blinked against the wind. "You were always you, Ethan. I just helped you see it." He smiled, open and unguarded, and for a moment we just stood there, father and son, side by side in the silence. As we walked back, he bumped my shoulder, grinning. "You're not so bad for a stepdad." "And you're not so bad for a kid," I shot back. That night, as Laura and I watched Ethan and his friends laughing in our living room, I realized something. Love doesn't fix everything, but it builds something stronger. A home, a place to belong. Ethan had found that. And so had I. We started with a creaky door and a crumpled letter, but we ended here together, unbreakable.